everybody. Welcome to this episode of Mismatch. So today's conversation is one that I've been honestly wanting to have for quite some time. If you've listened to this podcast for a while, then you've probably heard me mention things like, I've talked to my spiritual healer, or this is my spiritual leader, and this is who we have sitting down with me today. She's helped me navigate some of the most difficult moments in my life, sincerely. She's given me clarity and the ability to really connect with self, which is something that I've struggled with my entire life. Leanne Nicolle is a coach, consultant, Gestalt student psychotherapist, founder of the Aurora Project, a research initiative exploring the profound identity shifts women experience throughout midlife and beyond. And after more than 30 years in executive leadership, she's made the courageous decision to leave behind an identity she spent decades building to align with who she truly is and what she's destined to do. Today, we're talking about soul work, how to connect with self, and what it truly means to grow and change in our lifetime. Welcome, my guide, my friend, Leanne.
I felt so warm in my heart when you said that.
You're so sweet. It's the truth. I mean, I've said this to you so much, and I actually say it more behind your back, I would say. So it might be weird for you to hear it from this perspective, but it's true. The way that you came into my life was also very strange. But since coming into my life, I can say you've changed the person that I am and in the best way possible. So I'm just forever grateful for you. And I'm so happy that you're sitting in studio today in this setting. Because normally when I'm in your setting, I'm like a mess. I mostly cry. But I always walk out feeling 100% better and lighter, which is amazing.
That's always the goal.
That's always the goal, and you succeed. Yeah. So how I met you was actually when you were CEO at Big Brothers Big Sisters, which is a massive organization, and they do incredible work in supporting youth with mentorship and leadership. And so I want to tell me about your journey in transitioning, I think, because it's really interesting to go from such a corporate world into this kind of spiritual like guide, and just it's like a different activation of the brain and soul altogether, I feel.
Yeah, it is interesting. And I think what is most interesting is I've always had this calling. And what happened was the voices just got so loud that I couldn't ignore them anymore. So when I did work, I worked for the Olympics, I worked for international development with UNICEF and Plan, I worked in corporate consumer packaged goods, all in executive roles. And I thought that was my calling, interestingly enough. And I guess for a time it was. But it was always kind of misaligned with who I naturally was. And if I think back to my earliest memories as a child, I was a very soulful child. I read a lot. I was quite inward focused. Like I wasn't an extrovert, I really did a lot. I don't want to say I heard voices, but I knew things that a young child shouldn't normally know without exposure. And so those earliest memories really guided me home. And I had the real commitment to, I don't believe in soul retrieval, but I do believe in soul remembering. And I chose this lifetime, my soul chose this lifetime to be in Earth School. And when I started following that, then my whole world opened up. And I started meeting really interesting people who could benefit from being with me or spending time together to find their soul and to remember their soul in who they're naturally destined to be, in their natural intelligence. And so what I would say is externally, I was probably impacted by a lot of external forces. The desire to have financial freedom, the desire to be a mother, the desire to be a wife, the desire to be a good daughter, the desire to be an executive. So there was all this kind of external pressure that I bought into for a long time. And then all of a sudden, I just didn't buy into it anymore. And meaningful work has always been part of my value system. And so when I made
a lot of what you had done even corporately as well.
100%. In 2009, I literally wrote my personal business plan on a plane ride home from Africa.
Wow.
So before that, I was selling water in a bottle from France in the United States of America. That was my job.
Wow.
So like worked for, big multinational, and I had this project where it was called Drink One, Give 10, where the brand would invest in clean water projects in Africa for every liter sold in the United States.
Okay.
And it was a marketing thing. I was like, I was still like marketing executive at that point. I was like, well, this is a good way to capitalize on that, cause-related marketing. And while I was there, I know this feels cliche, but I had a massive epiphany about myself. And what it was is that I was really misaligned in not doing actual meaningful work. So I had an equity position at the company I was at, and I resigned the day I got home.
Wow.
I adopted a philosophy called Ubuntu, and I'm really conscious. I'm not appropriating or misappropriating the philosophy, but actually what it is I am because you are. We coexist. We can't be in each other. We can't be together without understanding that our energy is totally entwined. And so initially I started working with companies to bring that philosophy into their company to be more human. So it's a philosophy of humanness, and that's what the name of my consultancy is, Ubuntu Consulting. It's a philosophy of humanness. And that really resonated with me. And that was, I think, the turning point where I started doing more meaningful work, more international development, more bringing the corporate world into the not-for-profit world, because the two really didn't understand each other's language, and I could translate. So I did a lot of work. I helped start a campaign called Because I'm a Girl. You may know that, girls' rights, girls' issues.
I think everyone knows that, because that was a massive shift.
Yeah, it was a massive shift in how we talked about international development, how we talked about girls and women. And we anchored international development, like women and girls from international development, whether it be, in the global south, whether it be Africa or India, or in the global south. And just the themes were the same, with girls here, they just manifested differently. So we were able to make that more relevant here and to bring that cause into the light of Canadians. And then it became international, and that was a really, really big deal. And then I went to the Olympics. So I was the executive director of the foundation.
And it's interesting because you had a campaign that said, because I'm a girl, and yet you worked for an organization that I imagine was probably very male dominated. And so that I imagine also had its own kind of struggles.
Yes. I would say it was the most dialectical experience of my life, because I loved sport. I grew up, sport was my gateway into freedom. So playing sport, running was a big part of my life, long distance running, it always has been. And that was a big part of who I was and my identity. I was a fairly good athlete, you know, and so I was on every school team, I was on the swim team, and anything that was available, to help me sort of break free of where I was as a young person. But sport, I was like, oh, the Olympics. I was like, oh,
yeah,
I'm
that's
now
like
working
the top
at the
of the
Olympics.
top. Yeah.
And it was very interesting at the time. And this is this is 2013. So times were different, I would say. And, I walked into the office for my final interview, and they had the list of values on the wall. And it was like fair play, respect, trust, all the good values. And I was like, man, this really aligns with my value system. And so I went, and it was very shortly after, I would say within 3 weeks of going there, I cried myself to sleep thinking I made the biggest mistake of my life.
Really?
It's an incredibly toxic environment, heavily male dominated, but not in a good way. Not that that's ever a good thing. But it was under the ruthless leader of someone named Marcelo Bou, who was the chair of the board of both the Olympic Committee and the foundation. So he was my boss. And it was literally almost 4 years of hell living there or working there.
I'm sorry, that's terrible.
It was terrible. And ended up in a very public case of harassment. And I took the leader to task, and the board of the Canadian Olympic Committee and the Canadian Olympic Foundation to task, only because I knew I couldn't live with myself if I hadn't done anything. It had nothing to do with how brave you were for all the women. But that led to something really a pivotal point in my life. It was highly public. It wasn't supposed to be public. It did become very public. And what I learned was that the consequence of not doing anything was far greater than the consequence of filing a complaint.
Yeah, that's a great question to ask yourself when someone is like in contemplation of whether they should come forward and say something or do something. Because a lot of people go many, many years or deal with a lot of that and say nothing.
Yeah, of course. And so what it ensued was I thought I'd be off for 30 days. So I handed in the complaint and walked away, and I actually went on medical leave because I was honestly a puddle. Like I was in fetal position on my couch for the longest time, and so I went on medical leave while they did the investigation, which then turned not just to 30 days, but it was more like 120 days because there were so many people who came forward.
Wow.
Who volunteered their experience under his leadership or affected by him.
Right.
And it took them 120 days to wrap, of which they found that he with absolute certainty that he had abused and harassed a majority of people that they interviewed. So, and that was more than 100 interviews.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, I wondered why it took 40 years to come forward.
Well, I was going to say,
yeah.
Imagine how long it was happening before you were even there.
Well, the one of the people who volunteered, one of the women who volunteered, she was 15 years old, and he was the president, I think he was president of the Nordiques, the Quebec Nordiques, and he had fondled her breast in the president's lounge, and that was 40 years prior to me coming forward. So that was the first. So it was a minimum 40 years. And it just never, that's the abuse of power and that toxic masculinity of these structures and systems that we're in a system, we're in a time right now where I say it's the great apocalypse. You can either be on the side of destruction or the side of rebirth. I choose to be on the side of rebirth, just like a forest fire, But these systems are no longer tolerated. And I'm happy to say because of what happened to us, and I would say it was a collective, in 2013, what happened to us. Now the Canadian Olympic Committee is much healthier. It's a nice place to work. It's a great place to work for women. And so it really took something massive in order to change a system. Now I would say the sports system is still highly compromised.
For sure.
And safe sport is not something that we'll see probably in our lifetime, to be honest with you, because it's so heavily, there's such an abuse of power in sport in this country, all countries. But yeah.
It's interesting, the concept of something completely needing to be like destroyed to be rebuilt all over again. There's no like fixing holes. It's like something really has to crumble to be able to be brand new. I say that, I even say that with people, actually, to be honest. I say like sometimes you need to let people really fall hard and like, because until they fall, will they really realize where they're at and where they need to be, which is really hard. But at the same time, if you can do that, then you have what you have today. So how did you move on to Big Brothers?
So from there, I went back actually after the harassment case. I went back to work to help the organization heal from what happened to us. And that's
really cool. That's like amazing.
And you have to remember, this is all pre-Me Too, right?
Yeah.
Me Too happened in 2015.
Wow.
So this was like, it made the news, like it was the time of the election. Justin Trudeau, it was September of 2015. So Justin Trudeau had just made, just like in the running for his first prime minister, as prime minister. And then the second story with Peter Mansbridge on the National was the Canadian Olympic Committee, the allegations against his president. And so that was 2015. And that was a lot,
Were you kind of scared with like how it blew up and all of that?
Of course. Like, so I have the best story though, because my best friend in the world is a PR expert in PR and communications, and she was sort of like from the sidelines.
That's a good friend to
like,
have, for sure.
Like say nothing. Yeah. Like, we're going to protect my identity. And for the longest time, I was known as the unknown complainant.
Ah.
Yeah. And so we were standing, and it never was meant to go public. It was really meant to be handled internally, but someone leaked it. I have no idea who. But I was standing there in front of the TV, and my best friends, or I wasn't in front of the TV, my best friend was with me. We were at a yoga class, and she had gone to the car, and she said, it's gone. It's public. It's out there. And I just like crumbled. And so we get home. We're in front of the TV. It's the National. I've got my kids there, my husband. I'm like, I'm so sorry this has happened to us. And my son, who was 13 at the time, says, yeah, well, I'm just sorry. My mom's a badass.
That's amazing.
I was like, oh my God.
You couldn't ask for a better response. That's so sweet.
Yeah. And then we took it from there.
Yeah.
And so I took a little bit of time off to heal from that experience. And really, that's when I started really exploring and being able to be more in touch with my soul through the therapeutic process. And I did a lot of internal work. And then I decided to do a gig at Big Brothers Big Sisters. It was a broken organization. And it needed some good, some solid leadership. So we transformed that organization from being like, isn't it so nice you provide friends for those poor kids, to be a scientifically proven intervention where if a young person who has had multiple adverse childhood experiences in their youth actually has no, the negative long-term physical and mental health outcomes are with 100% certainty, unless there's an intervention of something like Big Brothers Big Sisters, where they have a positive, consistent, caring adult that comes in and
presence in their
helps
life.
them. Yeah. That's the only way. You can't change what happens to a child who's had adversity. What you can do, though, is mitigate the effects of that harm. And that's what Big Brothers Big Sisters does. So it's a brilliant organization. I love it so much. It was supposed to be a 3-year blow up and put back together and leave and do another one, but I ended up staying 7 years. I loved it so much. COVID obviously helped that, but I ended up staying 7 years. And I really, and that's in 2021, I decided that I would go back to school and still work full time. And the board supported me on that, which I'm really grateful for them to do that. And
well,
that.
They would be foolish not to. They didn't want to lose you. They're like, whatever you need to do, we'll support you in doing that.
Yeah.
But that's difficult.
Very progressive.
And that's a lot on you.
It was a lot. And, it was interesting because the first 2 years of my education at the Gestalt Institute was really personal work and unpacking because, when you're a therapist, you have to know yourself.
Yeah, I imagine so.
And I thought I knew myself until I went to the Gestalt Institute. It turns out I didn't really know myself at all. And I have been on the healing journey ever since and continued to do that. And I'm obviously a big supporter of therapy for anyone. And it is a supportive process for people to really heal from the inside. And Gestalt is an embodied modality of psychotherapy, meaning that it's where trauma or harm sits in your body from whatever age. Could be from infant, could be even from ancestral stuff that you're carrying from your ancestors, And so it was a really good fit for me because it's a much more phenomenological modality, and that is in keeping with me as a spiritual person, as someone who believes in spirituality and soul work, believes in the power of it. And so this is a great modality. What I was finding was I was having clients come and we'll talk about sort of the methodology, but I'd say, and then it's like, okay, take this to your therapist.
Yeah. And you're like, wait a minute, I'm going to be that person. I can be that person, especially with what you know.
Yes.
That, like carrying that over, I'm sure makes like a huge difference in your practice.
Yes, it does, because I can now work with the spiritual healing process, which I'm happy to explain, and then integrate it on how it's showing up today.
So let's talk about that, because I'm sure there's a lot of people also asking, like, what does spiritual healer mean? And a lot of people think it's like woo-woo and to some who really haven't dove into anything like this or been in touch with self, probably think that.
Yep.
Clarify exactly what it looks like and what it means.
Sure. So my belief is that our soul is as vast as the ocean. Your soul, my soul, everybody's soul is as vast as the ocean. And in this lifetime, we are merely a cup of our soul. And we have access to the ocean, except that most people believe they're only the cup. So what I do, and what I only have one gift, and my gift is I only get messages that promote the healing of the other, of the sitter. So it can come through a variety of lines, which I'll talk about. But the fact is that everybody has access to all this information that is their soul, the size of the ocean, and yet we only use our cup of soul. And so my work mostly is exposing the other, the sitter, like you've sat with me quite a few times, is to broaden your aperture into all that's available for you, all the information that's available for you, so you can then promote your own healing. You know, as my husband always says, like, as a psychic medium, because I get in both channels, when he's like, when are you gonna get the lottery numbers? I'm like, not that kind of psychic, sadly. I have a very unique gift, and that's I only receive messages that the other needs to hear to promote their own healing, and I only get messages that they're ready to receive, even though consciously they might not be ready to receive them.
That's really interesting, because I think that's also why a lot of people are so afraid of this sort of thing, because people are really apprehensive about hearing about something that they perhaps can't handle or just would rather not know.
Yes. So I'll just explain how it works, and then that might clarify things. So I have two channels. I have my center channel, which is the psychic channel. And that's where I can either access maybe something that a memory of yours that is figural and showing up today because it's been unhealed or it's still burdened. Or I can see into, the future, and time is a construct in this. So it could be like 2 days from now, 2 years from now, it doesn't matter. It's all one here. And I can like, hey, pay attention to this, or go get this checked out. Or does this something in your future? Or we can start to plant seeds in the future, so when you get there, what's meant for you will arrive for you. Because the way I see it is that in our physical state, as the cup, as the human, the vessel, our human self, we live in mostly two places: regret and guilt from the past, or anxiety of the future.
Oh, isn't that the most relatable thing? Like, I think anybody listening or watching can identify with those feelings. And sadly, it's like a constant.
It's a constant. Like, if you do an audit on how much energy, time, mind space, heart space, body space you're in the past or the future, most people are spending upwards of 90% of their time in the past or the future. Thank God my phone doesn't track that. So what our work together does is bring the past and the future into the here and now. How does it present today? How is it affecting you today in your relationship with yourself, in your relationship with others, in your relationship with your work? Like all of the things. And so we bring the past into the present, and we also bring the future into the present. And so that's the psychic channel. And then I have a mediumship channel, paternal and maternal channel, where your ancestors, either maybe even people you knew, people that you didn't know, way, 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 way back, who have information that's important for you to know now, because either A, you're carrying one of the big boulders that they brought into the lineage, especially the maternal lineage. We carry a lot of big boulders, and we can choose to put them down at any time. And I really work with a lot of people in putting their ancestral boulders down so they don't pass it to the next generation. So that information comes through also, but always just messaging either of support, of guidance, of maybe even like, hey, did you know, I'm not going to use your situation.
You can, it's fine.
It's like, did you know at one point that you were part of a religious order, for example? And then people are like, oh, well, that's interesting. I do have this like guilt complex, or this like sometimes it's Catholic guilt or whatever guilt, doesn't matter. It doesn't have, guilt is not denominational. But then we can look at it as like, oh, I see where it comes from now. And then how does it show up today? And can we put it down?
It's like you from, again, these different channels, you're able to make sense of why someone is the way that they are.
Exactly.
Or how they think, or how they feel, how they interpret, receive, because all of those things we are not necessarily conscious of.
That's right.
And I think once you draw awareness to that sort of thing, then you're able to translate a different level of understanding. And then again, as someone in your chair, once you have that understanding, you recognize that in your life. And then, like you said, from there, it's so nice to then be like, okay, so how am I going to work on this so that I don't give this to the next generation? Or like even in the present, in your present life, of like, how can I show up as my best self without carrying this, not realizing that this is how I'm moving and how I'm living.
Yeah. It's also discerning what's yours and what's not yours.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to discern it.
For sure.
You know, it's hard to know what came from our history, what cycles. So, you know, the question is, what cycles did your soul choose this body, to these parents, to these grandparents? What are you meant to heal in this lifetime? Why did you choose Earth School? Why did your soul choose Earth School? One of the hardest times ever to come to Earth School. Why did your soul choose Earth School at this time? And how every single interaction with a human, with an activity, with an event is meaningful. Every single one. Even though consciously it might not even register, everything is meaningful. It's not by accident that we met in the most random way that we did. It's not, there's no accidents in this work, you know? And so some people equate it to therapy on steroids, because we don't have to start from, okay, so tell me about your past and why you're here. I mean, I have to, when I'm in my practice, I have to start that way. I don't open the channels in my therapy practice, just so you know. So I'm not like creeping it's not like creeping your socials.
Inner soul, yeah.
your soul socials.
But I do recommend it. It's expedited.
Yeah, we start at a different place sometimes. Yeah. But you know, it's just really, and then you become curious. So if you can get over, especially the emotional waves that we have, if we can get over to the other side of the wave, like really, you don't get to bypass emotions. Like that's the thing. Most of us do. And that's why we see so much in society of numbing behaviors. Yeah, either substance abuse, social media, screen time, there's a million ways to numb. But, you know, an emotion happens, I feel sad, and then I get to the crest of the emotion, and then I drop out of the emotion. Either someone goes, don't worry, don't be sad. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you're out of the emotion. Why? Because you feel like I shouldn't be sad. If someone's telling me, don't worry, don't be sad, especially as a child, they're telling you not to be sad. When you're sad, you don't get to the other side of the emotion. So you bypass it, and then the emotion gets pushed down until you're ready to deal with it. And so if we can get to the other side, that's where curiosity comes in, and that's when it gets really interesting, really interesting.
What is something that has shocked you in diving into this practice, and perhaps not something that you expected?
I would say, so I did a psilocybin journey because last year, and it was a beautiful experience, I would say. Honestly, it was life-altering for me, for sure.
Me too. I've done it, and I felt the same way.
It
enhanced a lot of things that, again, were I've explored. It was like a more intense version of it. Yes.
I went in with a very specific intention, though, because I had done shaman journeys and I had done deep meditation, and I knew I'm a Reiki practitioner, so I've done a lot of internal and energy work. There was always a door that I could get to, but I couldn't open. It's like I didn't have the key. And so that was one of the big parts of my journey, was to find what do I need to know in order to continue in the next phase of this work. So I went in with that intention, and it shocked the hell out of me what the answer was, because I always thought I'd set my practice up for for young women or women who are experiencing transitory moments or women over 45. And it was very, very clear to me in that journey that I was sent to heal the men and support the women who are healing men. And I was like, what the fuck? Why is this about the men? Like, oh, even this is
like,
about
I wanted
the men?
to do the opposite, but the opposite is the same. Is like what you're doing.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. So when I unpacked that, I was like, oh, I see what this is. So sent to heal and help heal toxic masculinity, which unfortunately most young men are experiencing right now for a variety of reasons, mostly because their emotional competence is taken away from them in childhood. Don't cry, be a boy, sports, like there's so much. The list goes on. I don't need to exhaust that list because everybody knows it. But now I'm finding young men are coming to me for healing, either through the psychic mediumship session or therapy. And that was a big shock for me. I didn't expect it. And I'm so grateful that they're coming because it does promote their own healing. So when they go into relationship and partnership with another, they're able to express themselves. They'll be able to express themselves and be vulnerable with their children, which is very rare. It's really hard to be vulnerable with your children and say, hey, I fucked up, and I'm sorry. And I'm not going to make an excuse for it.
Yeah.
So I'm really, and the other piece is supporting women who are also sent in my little coven of witches, as I call them, Witcher One, my little coven of witches that are supporting themselves in a new way. So they don't have to show up as like dudes in women's body. Like that's how I showed up in corporate, It's like, I remember someone saying that to me. You're like a dude in a woman's body. And I'm like, I took that as a badge of honor. Now I'm like, that was the biggest insult I've ever had.
Yeah, because it's not the state that you should be in.
No.
But yet we take that on more often than we should.
Of course. And so finding that balance between the natural masculine and feminine, the light masculine and the dark masculine, understanding it, the light feminine and the dark feminine, and understanding it. Because rage in the dark masculine is very toxic, violent, that's what's harming our world right now and humanity. But the divine feminine also has a dark rage, which means movement. It means movement. And so as a witch who has been burned at the stake many times, I am a modern day witch now and really trying to bring that healing energy into the people who I surround myself with, but also sharing the gift so others can go on and spread it in their own circles and platforms.
For sure. I want to go back to when you said young men were coming to see you.
Yeah.
Why do you think that there's a shift of that now more than ever, Leanne?
Yeah, I think a few things that I'm seeing, addictions have shifted. So I would say one of the big things that I'm experiencing is young men, their first exposure to intimacy is through porn.
Yeah. I've had a discussion about this, and it's like, you know what? I was never exposed to it until I was older. So I never really quite like understood it. Right. And in conversations with people today, there's a number of people that have, brought up scenarios where it's like their perception is so just what that does to people is really, really bad, like deep-rooted bad.
Deep-rooted. I'm not going to say bad because that's a judgment. Yes. What I would say, it's deeply, deeply troubling.
Yes.
Because they can't find their own emotions and their own intimacy. And so when they bring in another, like a relationship, they have trouble accessing intimacy in a way that's natural because they've been trained that intimacy looks like porn.
Right.
Feels like porn. It's very transactional. It's very, and so this is a real struggle in relationships with men and women women are like, I would like it. I have a version of intimacy that feels warm and loving and safe. And men don't feel safe because they don't understand how to be safe.
That's so crazy. So how do men learn that then, or unlearn that?
It's
Really?
unlearning.
Yeah.
It is. And so, that addiction, whether it be, to porn and finding intimacy through porn, really harms their partner, because this is sexual dysfunction, I have to say, is true. It's real.
Yeah.
And intimacy issues are real. And
so many people have this.
So
just
many
a lot of people just also don't talk about it, or are afraid to actually say it, because they also think that that's the norm.
Exactly. So I'm not their mother. I'm their therapist. So they can say
easier
whatever
to say
the
it
hell
to you.
they want, right? So good on you for saying it and getting it out of your body, because it's harboring in their body.
Yeah.
And so we find it in the body, and then we talk about it and try to relieve it and unburden it, so there's no shame, because there's also so much shame in our world, so much shame for young men, but also so much shame for women. Like the whole dark feminine is shame, and it states back, we've had the conversation about Mary Magdalene, but it goes back to the patriarchy, where everything, women's rage, don't be so emotional, or women's sensuality or sexuality is like, don't be a whore.
Right.
Like sexuality is an emotion, it's natural, and yet we repress it as women, and we feel that judged, it's like all the faulting around, rape culture, and there's a lot of faulting, a lot of shame. And so that's what we really unpack in therapy, is where does the shame come from? Where was your first experience of it? And recognizing that shame with 100% certainty comes from an external source. Can't self-shame.
You only recognize it when someone says something to you that's the emotion that you experience.
That's right. And so when a young man shows up with a porn addiction, the shame around that is so real, because their partner's saying, stop watching porn, like, oh my gosh, and so shame on top of shame, and it just becomes very, very layered. And so to be able to get and unpack it, and actually then have anyone really be in touch with their true emotions, because what I'm seeing is a lot of the conversion is the true emotion is converting to anger. There are a lot of young men with anger issues, just general anger.
And these are like you're saying, the deep-rooted things that just need to be unpacked or understood.
They can access the anger, but they can't access the emotion that's underneath it. And that's what I help them do. Is it disappointment? Is it embarrassment? Is it sadness? Is it shame? Is it fear? What is it? Let's work with that emotion. So it doesn't have to convert to anger so quickly. Yeah, it's big.
When you think about asking those questions, it sounds really simple, but it's really not.
No, it's not.
Unpacking and really asking yourself, or figuring that out and being honest with yourself too, of how you're actually feeling, is hard to do.
It's very hard. That's why we see the emotional wave go up and then drop off, instead of getting to the curiosity of the other side. So that is really important, because what's at the other side in curiosity is freedom. And that's so beautiful when you see someone become free of a burdened part, or free of a burdened view of themselves. It's like, oh, actually, is it true that you're not worthy? Is it true? Do you really believe it? And sometimes the answer is yes, so we keep working on it until the truth comes in. And when we can find the truth behind these emotions, that's when you see people change. Now the challenge with change, I would just say there's risk in therapy, always.
For sure.
And the risk is that when you find yourself and you find your true emotions and you're able to unpack them, the people around you may not be able to accept what you found.
That version of you, for sure, because you naturally step into being a different version of self that often...
A truer version.
I mean, I think it's a better version because it's truer, as you're saying, but some people around you, you've changed. You're not the same.
Yeah.
And then that deters
we don't do
people.
the same things. We're not codependent anymore.
Yeah.
You see that a lot with addictions, and the partners or friends of people with addiction, when they find recovery, It's like, oh, there's no leverage anymore when person stops drinking or stops, abusing drugs or stops the addiction, because you don't have leverage.
Addiction is really interesting now, I think, too, because as much as it's more commonly spoken about, and I think like it's more than it was even a few years ago, because it's more common, sadly. I also think that addiction, it has been like mitigated because it's like, it has to be really bad for it to be an addiction.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the severity of it has changed, and so there's a lot more tolerance for like addiction that just like exists in like probably a lot of people that you even know.
Oh, well, first of all, the top 3 I'm seeing right now, screen time is number 1. So doom scrolling, the addiction to the phone, the addiction to the device, by far. Now, that is not in the DSM, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual for therapy or for mental health. By far, it is the number 1 numbing agent and dopamine hit, for sure. And it's socially acceptable. Like next time you're walking down the street, and I'm sure you've done this, or on the subway or whatever you are.
Look around.
Not one person is looking up.
I know. It's crazy.
It's kind of scary.
It is. It looks like a zombie apocalypse.
I
know.
when
I was on the streetcar the other day, I have moments like that, because I'm just also like curious, and I'm an observer. And I was looking around and everybody was like this. I was like, this feels like Black Mirror. Like it's freaky. It's weird.
It is. So, and yet it's like, no one's tracking it. No one's saying, oh, so tell me. I mean, that's the number 1 thing I say, like, how much time do you spend on your phone? And it was interesting because I did an intake the other day, and they're like, oh, not too much. I'm like, well, give me an hour. And they're like, oh, I only spend like 4 or 5 hours a day. That's not too much.
That's a lot.
It's a lot, but like track your time.
Yeah.
It's not that much. Like the fact is that person felt that 4 hours a day is not that much.
Yeah.
Shows me that, if you were numbing 4 hours of your day, that you're avoiding something.
Yeah, for sure.
Clearly. Yeah. And so to me, that's like the number 1 that I work with is like, and it's not elimination, it's reduction. I would say like, that. And then in young men, big addictions to gambling. Online gambling is it's so accessible, and it's secretive, and it's like hyper dopamine. And porn. Those are the 3 I see in men. In women, it's screen time, number 1. I would say shopping is, and consumption is, especially online shopping.
For sure.
Like there are people like with Amazon packages they haven't even opened,
That's
and
terrible.
no judgment if that's you. Which also then creates financial
it's so
instability.
Easy, and they're 100%.
It's so easy. You have a glass of wine and all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, you can make me skinny, look 10 years younger, and you know. So like we're chasing something as a society. Most people are chasing something, and the work I do is, instead of chasing or grasping, which is a lot of like people are like grasping at their future, grasping. Like even that is emotion. What I really help people do, I hope I help people do, is what I'm aiming to help people do, is to come back to themselves and let what's meant for them arrive. Versus chasing something or grasping at something that may or may not be meant for you, but you think it is.
That's been a common theme that I know you have brought to attention to me. And I mean, that's like me to a T. My entire life, all I have done is grasp at things because I'm driven. So I'm like a go-getter. And if I want something, I'm going to work really hard and I'm going to go get it. And in a relationship, if I really love someone, then I'm going to stay and I'm going to hold on and I'm not going to let the person go. Which is why all of that like filters into so many different parts of your life. And I remember when you first had said that to me, you're like, just sit back. And I often hear your voice in my head in scenarios. And I'm like, I just need to sit and I just need to wait. And seemingly it's really funny how things have kind of like fallen into my lap or I've drawn awareness to without really searching for anything, but it sort of has popped up. And And I really believe in that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's intentional. The difference is intentional. You can't sit on your couch and eat bonbons and,
Right.
Think that everything's just going to come to you. There's action. But the action is different when you're doing it in the purpose of an intention versus chasing something or grasping something that may or may not be meant for you.
Explain that a little bit.
Okay. So you say, like, I'm the same. Hey, like,
I know.
I was early Nicole, my early days. And I grasped and chased and like always had to be better, bigger, this.
And it wasn't competitive with other people. It was like with
myself.
Myself. Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
I had no competitors. They were just me.
Yeah.
I had enough in my, like, all my parts and all my people that are in my heart and in my body. They were my competition enough, and it was always like more or faster or like there was always this, and I just spun and spun. I was often spinning, And yes, I earned a good living and was able to provide for my family, all those things. But I did it at such a cost because I was like, am I really meant to be selling water in a bottle from France in the United States of America? Like, did that fill my soul? No, it did not.
Yeah.
Did it fill my, bank account? Sure. But money is energy. Mm-hmm. Okay. And when you bring in energy in the form of money, you have to put energy out somehow. Mm-hmm. So what I, started to do, and this took me a long time, my husband will attest to it. I finally dropped the rope on having to be everything to everyone. My daughter said something to me so profound at one point. One of the things that women, especially but me, I'll say, I abhorred. It wasn't that I disliked asking for help. I abhorred it. Like, would not do it. Mm-hmm. To a point where I broke my foot and ankle, and I MacGyvered a whole system in my house, including a scooter, so I didn't have to ask anyone to do anything for me. It was ridiculous. Like, it was ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And one of the interesting things we do at Gestalt is we explore disowned parts, and asking for help was something I had disowned a long time ago. Mm-hmm. We don't need to get into my childhood, but I was a very, parentified daughter where I had a lot of responsibility early on for a variety of reasons. And so that came from a way, way, way back. And I had to examine it. And I remember it was my birthday. I'd broken my foot and ankle, and my daughter had arranged a little dinner at Aurora at a restaurant. And she'd done it all by herself. I have adult children. So she'd done it all by herself, and my friends were coming, etc. And I said, you know what, let's not do that. Let's just order in or something, because I don't want to put anyone out, like, it's my birthday, it doesn't matter. I don't want to put anyone out. And my daughter said to me, you make it so hard for people to be nice to you. And I was like, holy shit, my whole life I've disempowered other people
around you. Yeah.
From engaging in their natural intelligence, which is to do nice things, to do good things, to give. I disempowered them. And that was like a mind flip for me. It was like one of those epiphany moments where you're like, oh my God, I have been seeing this all wrong. Mm-hmm. So for those of you who have trouble asking for help, think of it as if the other person is wanting to help you and you don't let them, you're actually taking something away from them, and that's very selfish. You think really you're being selfish, selfless?
Yeah.
You're actually being incredibly selfish. I was incredibly selfish my whole life. And I own it. And now I'm much better. I'm not perfect at it, for sure. I still prefer things done my way. And I now ask for help. And it has changed my relationship with my husband, with my kids, with my friends.
That's so interesting. I've never thought of it like that, because I do that.
Me neither. It's a real flip.
Because I feel like I'm inconveniencing people, or I'm a burden, I'll often say. And then,
But what you're saying to them, in my opinion, what you're saying to them is that I'm not worthy of what you have to give me. And it's simply not true. Like, I get emotional thinking about it. It's just simply not true.
Mm-hmm.
I'm worthy of what everybody has to give me, just as the other is worthy of receiving what I have to give.
Mm-hmm.
So the energy now moves between us like this, like an infinity sign.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just one way, one way, one way, one way, one way, one way, and then feeling depleted. I'm getting energy and I'm giving energy, and I'm getting energy and I'm giving energy. I receive money and I give money. I receive money, I give energy. It just feels like this. And the energy flows so differently in my world now.
Yeah, because you've learned to navigate the energy of what
It's all energy.
Yeah.
And when we see that, it's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
And you feel differently, yeah?
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I could say for the first time in my life, in the last year or so, like, I'm free.
God, I hope I can say that one day.
Of course you'll be able to say that one day.
I hope so. That's really hard to say. I think people might throw it around and say it, but you don't actually to really feel that way.
No.
Yeah.
No. And like, you have to be honest with yourself.
That's, yeah, exactly.
This requires deep honesty.
Mm-hmm.
And it required a lot of change. A lot of change in the people around me,
Mm-hmm.
too. In the best possible way.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Now, some of the people around you are, I mean, you've brought them up today, your family.
Yes.
Who are lovely.
They are.
Just like lovely, lovely people.
They are.
Leanne, you've been married for 31 years.
Be 31 years in August, yeah.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about navigating marriage and a long relationship, and especially with what you do, because you know a lot now. So also there must be an expectation for him, like, to kind of dive into that as well, and that might be a little scary as well.
Uh-huh.
Like, how has that also changed the dynamic of your relationship?
Mm-hmm. Well, Jim, first of all, I married the nicest human on the planet.
He's
so
so
if you're looking for one, I've already got him. So you might have to go for just south of the nicest human on the
31 years
planet.
and you say that, like, that's so nice. That's so nice. You honestly, that's so rare. You don't hear that now.
I know. I said to my kids on Father's Day, I'm like, I hope you understand that the biggest gift I gave you was marrying your father and making him your father.
Aww.
Choosing him as your father.
You're like making me choke up. That's so sweet.
I know. And it's true. It's true. My kids are so lucky to have such a strong and amazing father figure, male role model in their life. It wasn't always this way, yeah. So it's 31. It wasn't like 31 years of bliss. I'm not gonna. I'm not lying. But we learned along the way, and we grew at different rates. Certainly at the beginning, I was striving for my career, and like you, like go, 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 go. I was traveling a lot. He was running his business, and relationships do this, sometimes. And we had a time that was very, very difficult for our relationship. And we ended up going to couples therapy. Highly recommend couples therapy or couples coaching, whatever you choose.
Which is something that you do?
I do. I do work with couples. Yes, I do. I love working with couples coaching. I love working with family systems in general. I treat it as a system. But what we did, I think, which is very, very, was different and probably quite progressive at the time, is when we went into therapy, we didn't go in with the intention to stay together.
Interesting.
Yeah, we went in with the intention to be the best possible co-parents to our kids.
Really? So you were already at that point of
I don't
we were
think
this is gonna...
living in the same house, but separately.
Wow.
Definitely separately emotionally.
How long did it take for you to say, like, let's do couples care? Like, when it felt like not great?
Yeah, we were at least a year and a bit for sure of like really suffering. And as suffering as a unit, and then and so we were individually suffering also.
Yeah.
But what this therapist helped us do, and I'll never forget him, Carrie, was he helped us navigate that as our desired outcome, and that then helped us have something in common that we could agree upon. We could always come back to that.
Mm-hmm.
And so even as we navigated the hardest parts of our relationship, we always had that commitment to each other, and that commitment kept us going into the next session, and we found our way back to each other. And ever since then, we have been like a solid unit. There's like absolutely nothing. I always joke with him. I was like, he's too expensive to divorce now. So what the hell? Right, Jim? But more than that, we have a really, I would say, an enviable relationship at 31 years marriage. And I'm really grateful that Jim did the work to find his emotional competency too. He was not raised in an emotionally competent environment. They're very nice people, but emotional competency wasn't their strength, nor was mine.
Yeah.
And I would say the other piece that brought us together is my son suffers with borderline personality disorder. And that was very hard on our relationship too, parenting that.
That's really difficult. And any sort of relationship, again, whether that be someone that you're married to, your son, your daughter, how it affects, as you said, the system of a family. How have you navigated that as a couple and a family?
We were so blessed. It was through unfortunate circumstances where a friend of my daughter's took his life by suicide at age 14. And he had traits of borderline, and his dad really advocated for a therapy called dialectical behavioral therapy. But at that time, it wasn't available unless you were 18 because it wasn't diagnosed until 18 because there's a lot of stigma around BPD. And through that experience and me sort of working with Ben's dad after Ben passed away, because Cole had the same traits as Ben, he actually was contacted by an organization that was doing a trial for early adolescents with traits of borderline.
Okay.
And opened up a whole new world to us. So Cole got in that trial, and it's a family therapy. And we got in the trial too. And so we actually learned the skills required to create a therapeutic environment for Cole. Because with mental health, it's, you're either a dandelion or an orchid. It's a spectrum, I would say. But Cole was an extreme orchid. He required certain things to be his environment to be perfect in order to thrive. Right. We didn't know that. We were treating him like our daughter, who's a full-on dandelion. Like you pull her from the cracks of the sidewalk, she's popping up on the next one, So we were parenting him like that, and it didn't work for him. And so as we became more in tune with the skills of dialectical behavioral therapy, of validation, and the emotion is always with 100% certainty valid. The behavior might not be something you condone, but the emotion is always valid. In anyone. That's not with anyone, that's just in general. But most people invalidate the emotions. And so therefore
that triggers people.
Yeah, and they're othered. They feel it's all them. And in a lot of families that I work with and couples that I work with, it's always the one who it's always them and they're dysregulated and this and this and this. And what I can tell you, in any system, everyone brings in their own shit. So it's really understanding what you're contributing to the system and what you're taking out of the system. And a lot of people don't understand because they're just trying their best to keep that person from exploding or keep that person from dysregulation. And so this form of coaching is really important because it works with the whole family system. I work with the energy of the home. It's a very holistic way to heal a family or a couple. And it works.
Well, you've experienced it. So that's my question is how long maybe did it get to a place of really understanding that and carrying it out in a way that your family is in the position that you are in today, you know?
The four of us are a solid unit.
Yeah.
Cole lives in Whistler now and he's home for a month, and I would say except for the, little mess here and there, he's a welcome addition home. He has a partner, his girlfriend is lovely and understands who he is and takes him for who he is, and he's regulated and self-sufficient and thriving in Whistler.
Wow.
Yeah, and so it's such a great story to have someone who really may not have had, not given this support, may not have had a life that where he could thrive and would spend his life surviving.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing. And our daughter, the dandelion, is incredible, and she has a career, and she's full on adulting now. So she's got a partner.
She's super
and
talented and like just like the loveliest human. I remember I came across your daughter through a work setting, not knowing she was your daughter, and I like walked away being like, what a lovely gal. I was like, she's so driven and cool and like just kind. Like there's just like this kindness. You just feel it in a room and when I was with her. And then when I found out she was her daughter, I was like, of course she is. It was just like, duh. Like, it was the funniest thing.
Yeah, we're very proud of her. Yeah.
But you have just a lovely family.
Yeah, I do. I'm so blessed with people who love me, and I love them right back. And and then I have this extended family of my little coven of witches that I continue to nourish and nurture and want to see their best selves emerge. And I love meeting their soul and being with their souls. It's just, I feel very, very privileged at this point in my life. Very privileged for people to share what's really, really hurting and what they're suffering with me. And for me to be able to, I always say, I either walk behind you and give you a little nudge when you need, or in front of you when you need defending, is like, no, that's not your shit. Or most of all, I want to walk alongside you on this journey of life, so you feel like there's, whatever way you turn, you have someone to lean on. So that's my goal.
And as one of your witches, I definitely feel like that. So thank you. And I know, like, I mean, even anybody that I have recommended that has kind of been in a spot and felt, often anybody that I have said to go see you has felt a bit lost in a number of ways, whether that be with self, in a relationship, with work, with, losing someone. And legitimately, every single person that has ever sat in your presence and in your practice has walked out being like, I feel so much better. I finally understand. I know now, I know better, or I feel lighter. And yeah, just, you're a very special gift to this earth and in my life. And so that's why I always like share it with people who I also like love very deeply, because I know they're in the best care and the best hands. As a friend, I think in any relationship, you try and be supportive and be there for your people. And then I often feel like, but there's only so much I can say, or there's only so much I can do. And sometimes, leading people is, to find the answers is just as helpful,
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's always my privilege, and I only work on word of mouth, so like,
which is amazing.
Find me on the line.
It literally is amazing.
No,
you're not.
I have no social media presence, nothing.
You're not on the internet.
I'm an enigma.
So okay, but then my question: how do people get a hold of you? Do you want to plug your?
Yeah,
your
I'll put
email?
my
your website. You have a website.
I do. So just very quickly, I will do a plug for something I'm working on called the Aurora Project. Yes. So the Aurora Project. So the Aurora is the goddess of the new dawn. And so I was always under the archetype of Athena, who's the goddess of war and wisdom. I was always fighting, not with my hands, but with my wisdom and with my smarts. And like I always said, I was 8 steps ahead of everyone when I had to be in a fight or conflict. And I've let Athena rest, so she's resting. I can call on her when someone needs a little bit of a shot, but she's always available. She's my badass self. But Aurora is the goddess of the new dawn, and that's the softer version of me. I've really found my femininity. I ignored in my feminine side was quite dormant for a long time because I had to survive. That was survival. But the Aurora Project is a research study that I'm doing for women over 45 who are experiencing incredible identity loss in a very short period of time. A lot of corporate executives, we are the first cohort of women, my age, are the first cohort of women that had jobs in boardrooms, like big jobs in boardrooms en masse. There were a smattering that went ahead of us, but not many, and en masse. And we're all coming to the end of those careers. So there's that. And that identity loss, and oh my God, I'm looking back on 30 years of my career and I sacrificed a hell of a lot for my job. And what now?
Now what? Yeah.
Now what? And women over 50 are the largest group of executives being sacked, right? And losing their job, either self-selecting out or being selected out, mostly the latter. because women over 50 are expensive. Men over 50 are in their prime, by the way.
Crazy.
So, whatever. Anyway, there's that. 2 is that our kids, we're no longer active parents. So our kids are either at school, gone off to university or approaching that, or they're adulting and have left the house, like my 2 kids. And so I'm not an active parent. My role of daughter has shifted as my parents age and become, requiring more care. My father had a very, very was a terminal diagnosis, but my dad was in the 1% to actually beat the terminal diagnosis. Go figure. That's another story. But that caregiving role, has shifted.
My mom's in that very much so.
Right? Enormously. And our bodies have totally changed through perimenopause, menopause, or postmenopause. So our youth has, our physical youth has shifted. That's a lot of identity loss in a very short period of time. And so women get to this phase going, oh my God, like I'm not a grandma yet, so, and looking for the next role. And so instead of looking for the next role, what I'm really hoping to uncover are themes and support mechanisms that I can develop and put in place for this transition in life, especially if you start early. If you start at 45 putting the systems in place,
then when it comes.
When it comes, then you're not at a loss. And there are so many women who are lost right now in my age. So many women. I mean, I chose to go back to school. I had no idea that that's what I was what I was going to be able to work through. But now I'm on the other side. I can see how it was really important for me to do that. And now I can develop something. I don't know what it is yet quite, but I know it's going to be something because it's a calling to support women who were completely unsupported. We're just starting to talk about menopause. You know what I mean? Like
I know.
Just starting.
I know. Which is crazy. And the fact that perimenopause starts for some people at 35 years old is also something that is like not enough. Again, these are just like early conversations. I had one recently about this because not enough women know.
No, they don't know. They don't. So it's a very interesting time. Like we're just talking about the physical body, and I always say we don't just have one body. We have our human body, our physical body, the somatic bodies, the densest form of our energy. We can touch it, we can feel it, right? We can smell it. Like it's the densest form of our body. Then we have our emotional body, which is if you were sad and I was a surgeon, tried to cut you open and find sadness, I couldn't find it, but it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So it's wider. It's not physical or dense. It's less dense than, say, your physical body, but it still exists. And then you have your energetic body, which is the body that surrounds you. That either, have you ever walked into a party or a cocktail party where you don't really know anyone, but someone walks in and you're like, oh my gosh, for some reason I must get to know them. Nothing to do with physical attraction, just more like something's very interesting about them. That's your energetic body interacting with that, yeah? And the opposite is true. Someone walks into a room and their energy is like misaligned with yours and you're like, I don't know who they are, but I don't want to know.
Totally felt that.
Right? So it's paying attention to the integration of the energetic system in your physical body. Is it harboring energy? Yes, of course. We can always find where the blocks are. And then your emotional body, dealing with your emotions, your true emotions. How are you actually, if you're feeling sad in the middle of menopause, of course, you have to, it's a loss, you're grieving, yeah? And then the energetic body, and not sucking it in so close that you don't get to shine really brightly as elders. I'm not asking people to be old. I'm asking people to be elders for the next generation, so you don't suffer the same lack of information that we have suffered as women. Because I advised my daughter, I would advise my daughter very differently than I didn't get any advice, so I just navigated it myself.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So working on the Aurora Project. So the auroraproject.ca, and that's where my contact information, if you want to work together, is also on the auroraproject.ca.
Perfect. And we're going to have it linked below. So for anybody that wants to check it out, they certainly can.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Leanne, for coming
Such
in.
Such a pleasure.
This was so nice.
A big reveal.
Right? No, it's so exciting. It's so exciting. I feel so honored. And as a funny just takeaway too, the last time I sat with you, which was like, I feel like a couple weeks ago, you had said to me, one of the things, sorry, I keep going. One of the things that you had said to me was that bees were something that you saw.
Yes.
It was a card that came up.
Yeah.
We had talked about what that means for me. and they are everywhere.
Of course they
Like,
are.
and they weren't before. And it's again like taking notice. It was so funny. Even like emojis that have been sent to me that are not like commonly sent. It was, and it just, anyway, and a couple of other things, just really funny, really, really funny.
And that's when you say, thank you.
Yep. That's what I was like. Thanks, Leanne. Thank you.
No, thanks.
Yeah.
You. It's all you.
But it's you too. So thank you.
My pleasure. I'm such an honor to be here. Finally. Exciting.